Now, if this is your first time opening up Final Cut Pro, chances are you'll be getting some kind of a welcome screen. Feel free to explore any of this on your own, but for now we're going to continue and click through. Now, when you open up Final Cut for the first time, by default, you have an untitled library with today's date as your first default event. Now, in order to take a look at the interface here, it'd be helpful if we had some media in which to do that from. So let's go ahead and import some media to do that with. But before we do, go up here to Final Cut Pro and Preferences. Slide over to Import and just change this copy to library storage location to leave files in place. We'll go over this later in much more detail. For now, it's not important to understand what that just did. Go ahead and click on Import. It'll bring up your media import window. Again, we'll be going over this in more detail. So for now, just navigate to where you have your Final Cut Pro media downloaded to. Go into your Camera Masters and select just a couple of them up over here. Select Import. So now that we have a couple of clips here, let's go ahead and click New Project. We can leave this as Tour Interface. And go ahead and simply drag and drop one of these clips down here into your timeline. There are a lot of things we just skipped over, obviously, for first timers. We're going to go over it later, but now that we have some media in the actual timeline, we can take a look at the interface. So let's start from the top left here and just move on through. This is what you would call your library sidebar. You can toggle it on and off by clicking this button right here. And it will show all of your media, all of your keyword collections and projects. Right now it's not really populated, but as we bring in more media throughout the training process, you'll see what I mean. Right over here to the right of it, you have your music, you have iTunes, and you have sound effects. And directly next door to that, you have your titles, and you have your generators, which we'll go over all of this in detail later as well. Now, right above these three icons here, you have your import window shortcut button. You have your keyword collection shortcut button, and you have your background tasks. This we will check out later at various moments when we're doing different tasks and processing media. Let's go ahead and minimize this, guys, so we can take a bigger look at the browser, which is right next door. This is basically where you're going to browse all of your media. Now, there's different ways to view this. By going up over here, you can change this into film strip view from the list view. And even within Film Strip View, if you click on this second icon to the right, you can change both the size of the film strip views, but also the length of time that is displayed on the film strip views. So as you can see here, you can eventually get it to the point where you are seeing most of every frame of a single clip. This is really helpful when you're skimming through a single clip trying to find a moment. Now, in addition to being able to view your clips as film strips or as lists, there's also different ways that you can organize your clips. You can group them by content created, date imported, reel, scenes, duration, and various other types of metadata that you can either bring in from set using various tools or add manually here in Final Cut Pro. We'll go over this later as well. You also have the option to show waveforms here or not, and continuous playback I like to have on. We'll show what that is later on as well. Now, moving over here to the viewer, you will see that there are various different options here on the bottom left. To the extreme bottom left, you have your transform, your crop, and your distort tools. Directly to the right of it, you have a shortcut to your color and audio enhancing tools. And directly to the right of that, you have your retiming tools. Now, if you're not showing the video inspector already, just come up over here and click this little video inspector button, and it'll come up. Select a clip over here in your browser, and you can come up along over here to see your various effects applied, which there's nothing right now, your audio panel right here, your metadata information right here, which we can dive into later as well, and finally your share inspector. This is where you would add metadata tags that would carry along when you share this video out to YouTube and the like. To make the inspector panel stretch all the way down to the bottom, all you have to do is double click on the top and you can get an extended view. Double click to make it smaller again. Now moving down here into the timeline, which even though these are now called projects, this space is still called the timeline. We can see over here to the top right, you have various different options that you can click on. Much like up here in the browser, you can click on this little icon here and you can change the view and the length, the different size of the video and audio strips. You can come down here, and if you have clip names, clip roles, lane headers, you can toggle those on or off as well. To the extreme right over here, you have your audio meters, which you can easily toggle on by clicking this little audio meter icon right here. Now up here again above the inspector, you have your dual screen options, which you can toggle on and then select what you'd like on the second viewer. And also, just to clarify, some people like to say Final Cut doesn't have a source browser of some kind, but this actually isn't true. Because if you go up over here into Window, Show in Workspace, and go Event Viewer, boom. Make no mistake about it, you can be looking at something in your timeline while coming over here and seeing a second option on your source browser. Now, last but not least, down over here, right above the timeline, you have your timeline index, which you can use eventually to search through your timeline to find various media. This is also where you can search and find various tags and keywords that you've placed on media, and also where you can control your roles, including the way in which your roles are displayed in the timeline. You can edit your roles, and your audio lane functions are also in this area, but yet again, we'll cover all this stuff more in detail later. Now, it is important to point out for me that there's always more than one place you can go to do something in Final Cut. So while you can edit roles and hide audio lanes here in the index browser, you can also go up over here into Modify and edit roles from here. And last but not least, you can also go up into here in the information panel for the clip, go into video and audio roles here to also edit them. And that's just one good example of the fact that there are usually 2 to 3 different places you can find any one function, and generally there's usually going to be a shortcut for it as well. Now, last but not least, on the bottom right here, you have your effects browser, which you can toggle on and off, and you have your transition browser, which you can toggle on and off like that. All right, folks, so next we're going to be diving in a little bit to the preferences and the menus in Final Cut before moving on to actually importing some footage.